Hello, welcome to our channel. While we proceed, do just like this video and hit the subscribe button so you'll be notified if we drop a new video. Today we'll be discussing on an important topic, introduction to anatomy. Under this topic, we'll be looking at the scope and core definition of anatomy, the subdivision of anatomy, the hierarchy of structural organization, anatomical nomenclature, body plane and sections, body cavity and membrane, and the overview of the 11 organ systems. While we proceed, I will try my possible best to make this video very concise. Let's proceed with the first topic, the scope of anatomy. So when we say scope, what do we mean by scope? When we say the scope of anatomy, I'm trying to tell you what anatomy are involved and what is the key purpose of anatomy. The first scope of anatomy is identification of the body structure, which involves the naming and location of all the various components of the body. It also involves the study of relationship. The study of relationship is understanding how different body parts are positioned relative to each other and how they are connected. Then you have understanding the body organizations, which talks about the typical arrangement and characteristics of healthy structure. Then also we have providing a fundamental knowledge in psychology, pathology, surgery, and clinical medicine. Physiology is the study of the body functions and how the structures work. Pathology is the study of the diseases and how it affects the body structure. Surgery is guiding procedures based on precise knowledge of internal structures. Then clinical medicine is diagnosing and treating conditions by understanding the anatomical changes. So now let's go to the core definition of anatomy. When we define anatomy, we can define anatomy as a biological science dedicated to understanding the body structure, organization, and relationship of body parts in living organisms. Human anatomy specifically focuses on the structures of the human body, from the smallest, which is the cell, down to the tissues, up to the complex organs and interrogated organ systems. Anatomy can be approached from different perspectives, leading to various subdivisions, which also known as the branches. They include the gross anatomy, also known as the macroscopic anatomy. We have the microscopic anatomy, the developmental anatomy, and the clinical anatomy. So right now, we'll be taking each of them one by one. Let's move into the gross anatomy. Gross anatomy is the study of large visible body structures that can be examined with the naked eyes without the use of any magnifications. Then it is divided into the surface anatomy, regional, and systematic anatomy. Those the three of them. Then now the surface anatomy involves the studying of the internal structures. It's very, very crucial for physical examinations. For example, you're trying to locate the muscle by palpation, you're trying to find a pulse in the body. Yes, the regional anatomy focuses on examining all the structures such as the muscle, the bone, the nerve, the blood vessel, etc. It's just trying to study everything within a particular region. For example, trying to study everything within the head, within the chest, within the abdomen, all together. Then the systematic anatomy involves studying the body system. For example, we are trying to understand the entire cardiovascular system. Cardiovascular system involves the heart, the blood vessel, or trying to understand the nervous system, which involves trying to understand the nerves, the spinal cord, the brain. Then next, we go to the microscopic anatomy, which is a branch that deals with anything that are very, very tiny, that cannot be seen with naked eyes. So therefore, it requires what? A microscope. Under microscopic anatomy, we have the cytology and the histology. The cytology specializes on the study of individual cells. It examines the internal cells, the internal structure of the cells, their organelles, and how they perform their specific actions. Then now, histology is the study of tissues using a microscope. It involves the study of how cells are grouped into tissues and how tissues are grouped into organelles and how they work together to perform a specific function. Then we have the developmental anatomy. This field focuses on the structural change that occurs in an organism throughout the entire lifespan, from the moment of fertilization to adulthood. Specifically, it's talking about embryology. Embryology is the only subdivision of developmental anatomy because it's specifically dedicated to studying the developmental change that occurs from birth, from a single fertilized cells to a fully formed fetus to the maturation, development of organs down to the process of birth. So next we're looking at now is the hierarchy of structural organizations. We're looking at the complexity of the human body from the most basic elements down to the fully functional organism. At first, we have the chemical levels. So the chemical level is a fundamental level that involves the smallest units of matter, which is atom. Atoms such as the hydrogen, the oxygen, the carbon, the nitrogen, and all that. These atoms bond together to form molecules. They bond together to form what? To form molecules which are more complex than chemical structures. The molecules they form includes molecules like DNA, protein, lipids, glucose, water. So now these molecules are essential for cellular processes. So that will now lead us to the cellular level. Those molecules, particularly those macromolecules, like those proteins, those carbohydrates, and even the nucleic acids, they associate in a specific way to form the cells. And we know that cells is the smallest and functional unit of life, capable of carrying out all our life processes. And like we should know, these cells have their various organelles, such as the mitochondria, for their energy, their nucleus for the genetic control. These organelles help them to perform their specialized task. Then we have the tissue level. Those cells, those similar cells, along on their extracellular matrix, come together to form the tissues. These cells must have common structures and functions. Basically, there are 4 types of tissues, which includes the epithelial tissue, connective tissue, molecular tissue, and nervous tissue. The epithelial tissues covers the body surface and lining cavities, example, the skin. The connective tissue supports and protects the organs. They store energy and provides immunity, such as blood, bones, fats. The molecular tissues are specialized for contraction, generating force and movement. Like we have the skeletal muscles, cardiac muscles, smooth muscles. Then we have the nervous tissues, which transmit electric signals to the coordinated parts of the body functions. We have such as the brain, the spinal cords. Then next, we have the organ level. An organ is a structure that is composed of 2 or more different types of tissues that work together to perform a specific complex function. For example, we have the stomach, we have the heart. The heart pumps blood. Next, we have the organ system level. The system consists of a group of organs that cooperate closely to accomplish a broader purpose. For example, we have the digestive system. The digestive system includes both the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, the rectus, while the cardiovascular system transports blood and nutrients throughout the body. Then lastly, we have the organismal level. This level represents the highest level of organization. All the organ system functions independently and in harmony to maintain a stable internal environment to ensure that the survival of that human being, of that organism as a whole, is accomplished. To make it very concise for us to understand, group of atoms combine to form molecules. Molecules associate in different ways to form cells. Similar cells form tissues. Group of tissues that have the same complex functions form organs. Then organs cooperate in different ways to form systems, such as the nervous system, digestive system. Then the highest level of organization is the human being body as a whole. Next, we'll be looking at the different anatomical nomenclature, which involves the different anatomical terms we use when discussing the human body to avoid confusion. But before we proceed to that terms, let's talk about the anatomical position. There is a position the body is said to be that is considered the anatomical position. This is when the body is standing erect. Your feet is parallel and flat on the floor. The eyes is looking forward with the hands on both sides and the palms facing forward. Let's now dive into those anatomical terms, those nomenclatures. First, we'll be looking at is superior, the term superior. When we say superior, we mean that something is located towards the head or something is located above something. For example, we say that the head is superior to the neck. There we say that the head is what's above the neck. The next is inferior. When we use the word inferior, we mean that something is below the head or below towards the feet. For example, we can say that our feet is inferior to our knee. What we mean is that our feet is below our knee. Our feet is inferior to our knee, which means our feet is below our knee. We have anterior. Anterior. We can also call it ventral. When we say something is anterior to something, we mean that something is at the front of something. Let's put that with an example. We can say that our sternum is anterior to our spine, which means that our sternum, our sternum is like this, our breastbone. Our sternum is at the front of our spine. We have posterior, which can also be called dorsal. When we use the term posterior, it simply means something is at the back of something. Also, let's put that to example. We can say that in our body, our shoulder blade is posterior to our rib cage, which means that our shoulder blade is at the back of our rib cage. Then the next we'll be looking at now is medial. When we use the word medial simply means towards the midline. Medial can be said towards or at the midline. So let's put that to an example. We can say that our nose is medial to our eyes, which means that our nose is at the midline, at the center of our eyes. Then the opposite is lateral. Medial and lateral. Medial means towards the midline. Lateral means what's away from the midline. Then in lateral, can you give the example by saying that our ears is lateral to our nose, which means that our ears is moving away from midline of our nose. Then next, we'll be looking at proximal. The term proximal, it also has an opposite. distal. The way we have medial and lateral, we also have proximal and distal. Proximal and distal are mostly used for limbs and appendages. When we say proximal, we mean that it is closer to the origin of the body parts. And when we say distal, it means that it is far from the what? From the origin of the body parts. For example, we can say that the elbow is proximal to the wrist. The elbow, yes, touch your elbow. It is proximal to the wrist because the elbow, the origin of the body parts is the trunk. So the elbow is closer to the origin, which is the trunk, than the wrist. Then we can say that this our fingers is distal from our wrist. Next, we'll be looking at superficial. Superficial, when we say superficial, we mean external. Superficial is opposite to deep. We have a term superficial, we have that of deep. Superficial means external and deep means what? Internal. When we say superficial, it means that something is towards the body surface. Towards at the body surface, and deep means away from the body surface. So for example, we can say that the skin is superficial to the muscle. It means that the skin is what is at the body surface compared to the muscles. Then at that of deep, which is internal, we can say that the bone is deep to the muscle. You know, we have our skin, then we have our muscles, then bones. So deep means what's away from the body surface. That is internal. So the bone is deeper than the muscles. So I can say that our bone is deep to the muscles, and I can also say that our skin is superficial to our muscles. So let's dive into the next subtopic, which is the body planes and sections. So to effectively visualize and describe the internal body structures, especially in the medical imaging, such as the X-rays, the CT or MRI scan, the human body is conceptually divided into imaginary flat surfaces called the plane. So now these planes allows us to section the body, providing specific views for internal organization. There are three main anatomical planes, which are the sagittal plane, the frontal plane, and the transverse plane. The sagittal plane divides the body longitudinally from the head to the toe into right and leftwards parts. If this sagittal plane passes directly through the exact median of the body, creating two equal right and left halves, it's called a medial sagittal plane. Medial sagittal plane, you can also call it median plane. Any sagittal plane that is offset from the midline, resulting to unequal right and left parts, is referred to as parasagittal plane. So imagine slicing an apple vertically into middle or slightly different parts. Next, we have the frontal plane. The frontal plane is also called the coronal plane. This frontal plane is when the body is divided longitudinally into anterior and posterior parts. Remember, we discussed the terms before. Let me refresh it again. Anterior means what? Front. Posterior means what? Back. So now this plane is when the body is divided into anterior parts, which is what? Front and back. It runs vertically from side to side, perpendicular to what? To the sagittal plane. So imagine slicing a loaf of bread horizontally from the cross to cross to separate the front and the back. Next now is the transverse plane. The transverse can be axial or cross-sectional. This transverse plane, it divides the body horizontally across the body parts from superior to inferior. So under this transverse plane, it involves cutting the body horizontally into superior and inferior parts. Yes, these cuts are often called cross-sectional points and are frequently used in CT scan or MRI scan to view upwards and downward segment of the body. So imagine cutting a bread now vertically. That's a very good example. So these planes altogether now are very, very crucial in describing the location of organs, lesions, and other features in the body. Next is the body cavity and membrane. Body cavity is a fluid space within our body that contains and protects our internal organs. These cavities are also lined by membranes. Basically, there are two major types of body cavities, which are the dorsal cavity and the ventral cavity. These two cavities now subdivide into smaller cavities. The dorsal cavity is largely encased by bones, which are subdivided into the cranial cavity and the vertebral cavity. The cranial cavity is formed by bones of the skulls, which helps to protect the brain. Then the vertebral or spinal cavity is protected by bones too, which helps to protect the spinal cord. Then next is the ventral cavity, which helps to protect varieties of organs. It's subdivided into two, which are the thoracic cavity and the abdominopelvic cavity. This thoracic cavity is located within the chest. It helps to protect the ribs, the sternum, and vertebral columns. It contains the heart. Then the abdominopelvic cavity is located inferior to the diaphragm, which extends from the abdomen down to the pelvis. The abdominopelvic cavity is divided into two, just like the name implies, abdomen and pelvis. It's now divided into two, which are the abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity. The abdominal cavity contains the stomach, the intestine, the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas, the kidney, etc. Then the pelvic cavity
contains the urinary bladder and the reproductive organs, including the rectum. However, a membrane is a thin, permeable sheet of tissue that covers the surface, lines a cavity, and separates structures from its parts. A membrane can serve as protective, secretory, absorption, and lubricative functions. Lastly, let's look at the 11 organ system of the human body. And of course, we know that our human body is an efficient machine that is coordinated by this 11 organ system. So this system now consists of organs which functions together to maintain our life and health and also respond to the environment. Let's start from the integumentary system. The integumentary system consists of the skin, the hair, the nails, the sweat glands, the oil glands, and the main function is to form the body's external covering and act as a first line of defense against pathogens. It also protects our tissues from injury and drying out. Next is the skeletal system, which consists of bones, cartilage, ligaments, and joints. The main function is to provide structural support to the entire body. It helps us to perform our daily activities by movements. It protects our vital organs such as our brain, such as the way the skull protects the brain, such as the way the ribs protects our hearts and lungs. It serves as a framework for our muscle to attach to, allowing our movements. It stores minerals such as calcium and phosphates. The next system we're looking at is the muscular system, which composes of the skeletal muscles, the cardiac muscles, the smooth muscles. Smooth muscles is our internal organs. The cardiac muscles is in our hearts. Then the skeletal muscles is where our muscles attaches to our bones. Its main function is to generate movements for locomotion. It produces heat as well as a byproduct of muscle contractions. Then the next system we're looking at is the nervous system, which consists of the brain, spinal cord, nerves, sensory organs such as the eyes and ears. It functions in receiving sensory information from internal and external environments. It's also responsible for our thoughts, our memories, our consciousness. Then the next system we're looking at is the endocrine system, which consists of the glands that secrete hormones. Glands such as the pituitary gland, thyroid gland, adrenal gland, pancreas gland, ovaries, testes. It helps our body to regulate the chemical messengers called hormones. We also have the cardiovascular system, which consists of the heart and the blood vessels. Blood vessels like the arteries and veins and capillaries. This functions in transporting essential substances through the body to the body via blood. It delivers oxygen and nutrients to cells, removes carbon dioxide and metabolic waste from our cells. It also transports hormones and helps to regulate body temperature. We have the lymphatic system and immunity, which consists of the lymphatic vessels, the lymphatic nodes, the spleen, the thymus, the tonsils. They help to store white blood cells, that's the lymphocytes and other immune cells. They mount the immune responses by defending against pathogens also. Then next, we have the respiratory system, which consists of the nasal cavity, the throat, that's the pharynx, the larynx, the windpipe, the bronchi, the lungs. They help to facilitate gas exchange between the blood and the external environment. They help to keep constant supply of oxygen and remove carbon dioxide. They also help to regulate our body pH. Also, we have the digestive system. Before I forget, the respiratory system also helps to maintain our vocalization. That's the producing of sounds. Then now the digestive system consists of the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, the liver, the pancreas, the gallbladder. They help to break down food physically and chemically into absorbable nutrient particles. Then we have the urinary system, which includes the kidney, the ureter, the bladder. They help to eliminate nitrogenous waste from the body, regulate our body electrolytes and water. We have the reproductive system. Reproductive system in a man is the testes, in a woman is the ovaries, and all their associated structures. The main purpose of the reproductive system is for production of offspring. If you made it this far to this video, I'd like to say thank you for your active attention and curiosity. Please do well to like this video and subscribe to get notified when we drop our next video.